Okay, this session we're going to be looking at functions and mappings. Okay, to start off with, there's a half price closing down sale, and we need to find the reduced price of the following items. Okay, so the first one is some shirts. So it cost £8 originally. How much is the reduced item? Okay, so that's going to be £4. The next one, we've got suits, which cost £60. Okay, what is half price of that item? And then we've got trainers at £24. The next one is books at £4. And we've got frames at £7. All of these are relatively simple. We're just halving each of the numbers. So if I have £8, we know that reduced it's going to be £4. We're just halving it. So same method. For £60 it's going to be 30. £24, half of that is 12. £4 is simple. Half of that is 2. For £7, and even for other odd numbers, which tend to be a little bit more tricky, we can split it up into two numbers that are easy to work with. So we know that £6 and £1 gives us the £7. And now if I want to find half of that, or 50%, half of £6 is going to be £3, and half of £1 is 50p. Okay, so we know that in total, 50% or half price of £7 is going to be £3.50. Okay, the next one is for some DVDs. Again, we can use a similar method. So if I've got £15, I can split that up into 10 and £5, and then the answer will be £7.50. So 50% of £15 is £7.50. Okay, let's have a look at this question here. We want to find half of 38, just 38. So if we split up the number, there are many ways that we can do this, but I think the most simple way is to split the number up into 30 and 8. And then we know that 50% or half of 30 is going to be 15, and half of 8 is 4. So we just have to add that up, and that gives me £19, or 19. Okay, now we want to work out half of £32, half of £54, half of £46, half of £94, and half of £73. Okay, so just pause and quickly work those out. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the last one. If I want to work out half of £73, again I can split it up. I can find half of 70 and half of £3. Okay, half of £70 is 35. Half of £3, £1.50, so I just add them up and I'm left with £36.50. Okay, moving on to functions, we have a rule which is add 3. Okay, I need to put this into a function machine in order to work out what my output is going to be. I can put in different values for my input. Sometimes these are given, sometimes they're not. And then using the rule and my function machine, I find my output. So my function is +3. If my input is 2, I'm going to put it through the function machine add 3 to it, and my output is going to be 5. Okay, again, same rule, add 3. My input is 4, I add 3, and I get 7. Next one is 9 for the input. I add 3, and my output is 12. Okay, for this last one, I'm told that the output is 15. Okay, so I need to go backwards in my function machine. So that means I need to do the opposite of what the rule is. So if I've got plus 3, the opposite is going to be minus 3. Okay, so now I've got minus 3. Okay, so I put the 15 in, I minus the 3, and I get 12. Now if I go forwards, I can check 12 plus 3 gives me the 15, so we know that is correct. Okay, for this next slide, you're often given your function machines in the form that we're going to see. So we're given our input, the function was plus 3, and the output is 5. Okay, so looking at the next ones, 4, 7, 9, 12, and then 15, we can go backwards. So when you have your function machine, if you're given the output, again I'll just explain, I can go backwards, minus the 3, and I get my input to be 12. Okay, now it's your turn. Just answer these questions. Press pause before I go through the answers. Okay, you just need to write down what the rule is, so express each of these functions in words. Okay, so for the first one, we've got the input is 2, output is 4. 3, 5, 4, 6, 5, 7. We can see that the rule is plus 2. For the next one, 3, 9, 4, 12, it's not adding this time, it's multiplying by 3. This next one, 1, 6, 2, 12, we can see that these numbers in the output are in the 6 times tables, so I'm timesing by 6 and it works for all of them. Okay, the next one, 24 to 12, 12 to 6, 8 to 4. We should be able to see that it's halving, so it's dividing by 2. And then the next one, for E, we have got 2 to 9, 3 to 10, 4 to 11, that's adding on 7. And then the last one, 2 to 16, 4 to 32, 6 to 48, 8 to 64, we can see that's timesing by 8. Okay, so there shouldn't be anything too difficult there. Okay, sometimes we are given a combined function, okay, or a double function. So I'm given the rule, times by 2 and then add on 3. So for whatever numbers I'm given, I need to go through each of those steps to get my output. So my first number is 1. 1 times 2 gives me 2. 2 add 3 gives me 5. Okay, so that is my output for 1. My next number for the input is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 3 gives me 11. Next number is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 plus 3 gives me 15. Okay, this time I'm given the output. Okay, so we need to go backwards in our function machine to get back to the input or the start value. So remember, we always do the opposite operation as what is said or shown. So instead of adding 3, I need to take away 3. Instead of timesing by 2, I need to divide by 2. So 43 goes in, I minus a 3, which gives me 40, and then I divide it by 2, so 40 divided by 2, and that gives me 20. Okay, so I'm just going backwards, same as before, except this time we've got 2 steps. Okay, so it's your turn now. Find the missing values in these double function machines. So press pause and then I will go through the answers when you are ready. So for the first question, for 2a, we've got 4 times something gives me 8. So that's obviously timesing by 2. 8 plus something gives me 11, so that's plus 3. So I'm multiplying by 2, then adding 3. Next one, 5 times 3 gives me 15. 15 take away 6 gives me 9. 4 add 2 gives me 6. 6 times 3 gives me 18. For this next one, we've got some things that are missing in the middle here, but we're given the output. Okay, so we know what this number has to be by going backwards. So 18, I need to go backwards, so I divide it by 2, and that gives me 9. And then I just need to think, what do I have to add on to 3 to give me 9? Okay, so that's plus 6. So it's plus 6 timesing by 2. Okay, for each of the following functions, you need to find the combined function. Okay, so there are 2 rules that takes you from the input to the output. Okay, so you need to find the 2 functions, and it has to work for all of these numbers. Okay, so press pause and try these for yourself, and then I will go through the answers. Okay, for the first one, 1 to 3, 2 to 5, 3 to 7, 4 to 9. There are many ways that we can answer this. We can either use the methods that we've been using in the previous sessions, okay, so finding the difference, and then using that as our multiplier. So for example here the difference is 2. Okay, and again the difference of the output is 2. So from the previous sessions we know that it's going to be multiplied by 2. Okay, so it's our number multiplied by 2, or the input multiplied by 2. Okay, what do I need to do to go from 2, so 1 times 2 is 2, and then to get to 3 I have to add the 1. Now just check that again for another number. So if I have 4, times it by 2 I get 8, add the 1 gives me the 9. So that is correct. Okay, the next one, 1 to 2, 2 to 5, 3 to 8, 4 to 11. Okay, there are many things that we can do to get from 1 to 2. Let's have a look at 2 to 5. I can times by 2, add on 1. If I do that for the first one, 1 times 2 is 2, add on 1 gives me 3, so that does not work. Okay, if I times it by 3, I would then have to, so if I times it by 3, that will give me 2 times 3 is 6, take away 1 gives me the 5. So we need to check that this works for the other inputs. So let's try it for 3. 3 times 3 is 9, take away 1 gives me 8, so we know that that works. For this next one, we've got 1 to 7, 2 to 12, 3 to 17, 4 to 22. This one is a little bit more tricky. I would suggest using the difference. So here we know that the difference is 5. So we know that I have to multiply by 5. So if I do that, what do I have to do to get to 7? I have to add on 2. So 1 times 5 is 5, add 2 gives me 7. 2 times 5 is 10, add 2 gives me 12. 3 times 5 is 15, add 2 is 17. So we know that that works. So that is the rule for the last one, times 5 and then add 2. Okay, some questions for you to try. You need to work backwards from each output to find the input for each of the following functions. So you're starting over on this side from your output, which is over here, and then you're going to work backwards. Okay, so remember you need to do the opposite operation. So for this first one, instead of adding 4, because we're going backwards, you need to take away 4. And then you need to divide. Opposite of times is divide. So divide by 3 to get your input. Okay, so when you write this out, you're going to have 2 columns. So you're going to have 7, 13, 16, 25. And then you have your rules. So we've got +4 times 3. And then you're going to have your input listed down here. So remember, you need to line up your answer for the 7. You need to line it up in line with the 7. Answer for the 13 needs to be lined up. Okay, so press pause and answer those 3 questions. Okay, so we're just going to go through the answer for the last one. Okay, so if it's minusing 3, I know that I have to add 3 if I'm going backwards. So we've got +3, and then instead of timesing by 4, I have to divide by 4. Okay, so 9 add 3 gives me 12. Divide by 4 gives me 3. So I know that I get 9 and 3. 17. 17 plus 3 gives me 20. 20 divided by 4 gives me 5. The next one is 33. 33 add 3 is 36. Divided by 4 gives me 9. And then the last one is 37. 37 add 3 gives me 40. 40 divided by 4 gives me 10. So those are the answers. If you follow that method for all 3 questions, then you should have the correct answers. And remember, you can always check them by working forwards again. So 3 times 4 gives me 12. 12 plus 3, sorry, 12 minus 3 gives me the 9. Okay, so you can always check your answers going forwards as well. Okay, there's a bit of an extension question here. If you understand what we've done, then you can try this one. So from the following single functions, see how many different combined functions you can make. Okay, so how many combined functions can you make? So that's more than one rule. And then they've given you an incomplete function, and you need to find the numbers to go in the boxes when the input is 5, output is 17. So here, input is 5, output is 17. Okay, so what do we multiply by, and then what do we have to add on? And then you do the same thing for 8 and 60, and then for 13 and 101. Okay, and then the last part is to see how many different numbers you can find in each case. Okay, so how many different numbers you can find in each case. So how many different inputs and outputs you can find. Okay, something for you to try. It's a little bit of homework. You're going to draw diagrams to illustrate the following functions. Okay, so you need to put in your input and outputs. And then what do the functions and your diagrams show you about the order in which you combine the functions? And then the last question, write down the inverse function of each of these. So it's quite a simple homework. I'll put some additional questions on the course page for you to try if you want to have more practice in this, and you can find ones that are a little bit harder. Okay, so for those of you that are finding this easy, you can try the additional questions, which I am going to put on the course page. Again, any questions, I'll be available Tuesday at 2 to 3. Okay, so you can come and talk to me with any questions, or you can email me or send me a message. Okay, and I will respond back to you. Okay, so thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.